When do people help? Diffusion of responsibility. In 1964, Kitty Genovese was brutally stabbed to death in Queens, New York. The attack lasted over 30 minutes. Her assailant twice left the scene and returned to continue the assault. 38 witnesses watched from their apartment windows, neither coming to her aid nor calling the police as she cried for help. The public was outraged over the apparent callousness and lack of social responsibility on the part of the bystanders. Intrigued by the bystanders' inaction, Princeton psychologists John Darley and his colleague Bibb Latané decided to try to identify the factors that produce this type of passivity. Darley and Latané, 1968, hypothesized that bystander apathy was caused by a dilution of the individual's sense of responsibility in a larger group of people. In other words, Darley and Latané demonstrated that the more bystanders there are during an emergency, the less likely it is that any bystander will intervene to provide aid. This occurs most commonly in emergencies, but may occur in non-emergency situations as well. See this person. She walks on the grass, falls down on purpose, pretending to have hurt herself. If one person sits around, what is going to happen? Let's try with another observer seated on the grass again. What about a group now? Let's now see a second example in a non-emergency situation. A Confederate will now drop coins in front of a vending machine. We will see if people staying in line behind her, depending on their numbers, would help pick them up. Let's try with a single person staying in the line, waiting for a cup of coffee. What about now a group of 6 persons waiting? Latané and Darley showed in a similar condition where Confederates would drop coins in an elevator that if only one person was in the elevator, the Confederate received help 40% of the time. This figure dropped to 20% when 6 other people were in the elevator. Latané and Darley, 1968 to 1980, conducted over 40 experiments which examined how the number of bystanders would affect helping behavior. 90% of the time, a lone bystander was more likely to help than when many people were around. Other examples. Latané and Darley, 1970, had men either fill out a survey by themselves or in groups of 3. While they were completing the survey, smoke started to pour into the room through a vent. After 4 minutes of smoke, 75% of the subjects who were alone reported the smoke to the researcher, while only about 12% of the subjects in groups reported it. Darley and Latané, 1968. Subjects were told they were supposed to discuss students' condition problems. To assure their anonymity, they were put into separate rooms and told to talk over an intercom. They were further informed that no one would be listening to their conversations. During the discussion, one of the subjects began having an epileptic seizure and pleaded for help. When subjects believed they were the only other person in the discussion, 85% left the room to seek help. When subjects believed another person was having a discussion, 62% went to help. When subjects believed 4 other people were also having the discussion, only 31% went to help. Effects of group size on likelihood and speed of response. Why does more people equal less help? Interpretation. The more bystanders, the less likely any will interpret the situation as an emergency. Any given bystander is less likely to notice the incident as the number of bystanders increase. In the smoke experiment, only 3 of 8 groups tested ever reported the smoke. We use other people's behavior to help us gauge what the reality of the situation is. Responsibility. Responsibility gets diffused as the number of bystanders increases. When people are asked about the effect of bystanders, they claim that they had no effect on their behavior. In conclusion, according to the authors, the present results create serious difficulties for one class of commonly given explanations for the failure of bystanders to intervene in actual emergencies, those involving apathy or indifference. These explanations generally assert that people who fail to intervene are somehow different in kind from the rest of us, that they are alienated by industrialization, dehumanized by urbanization, depersonalized by living in the cold society, or psychopaths. The results of this experiment seem to indicate that such personality variables may not be as important as these explanations suggest. Yet they did not predict the speed or likelihood of help. In sharp contrast, the perceived number of bystanders did. The explanation of bystander apathy may lie more in the bystander's response to other observers than in presumed personality deficiencies of apathetic individuals. Although this realization may force us to face the guilt-provoking possibility that we too might fail to intervene, it also suggests that individuals are not, of necessity, non-interveners because of their personalities. If people understand the situational forces that can make them hesitate to intervene, they may better overcome them. Darley and Latané, 1968. I thank you for your time.